Welcome to Pique Your Interest, your go-to podcast for all things mortgage and real estate. Hosted by Tanner Greenwald and Tim Malaskis. We bring you expert insights to help you buy, sell, and invest with confidence. Let's dive in.
Welcome back to Pique Your Interest podcast. I am Tanner Greenwald.
And I'm Tim Malaskis.
And today we are going to be talking about a loan product that is semi-underutilized. Some people utilize it. Some people don't even know it's out there.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking about rehabilitation loans. So your 203k, your rehab loans, they're called a couple different things. Yep. Today we're going to specifically be touching on FHA 203k loans. We're going to have another episode coming up where we're going to kind of dive into conventional, but today it's going to be FHA. Yeah. So this loan type, essentially, it allows you to go out, house hunt, find a house that you like. Maybe you like a house and it has repairs that need to be done. So this loan allows you to get a loan and then have a loan for the repairs to be done, and it encompasses it all into one loan.
Yep.
So this is perfect for anybody who's house hunting right now and they're frustrated because they feel like maybe they've seen a couple houses and nothing strikes their fancy, or they're losing out on bidding wars. This is great for real estate agents if you are seeing lower inventory in the area. And you're wondering, how these buyers that you have qualified can go out and put an offer in on a home at this point. So this is a really good topic to discuss, and Tim is going to get into the meat and potatoes of it. So Tim, tell us a little bit about 203k.
Yeah, so Tanner and I decided this would be a good topic. It would be a timely topic as we sit here in like the spring of 2026, because, I don't know about you, but I talk to real estate agents and I keep hearing like there's no inventory, there's nothing on the market. And I think this is kind of like Tanner alluded to, it's an underutilized tool to help make a house that you wouldn't normally want to buy. It doesn't check all of your boxes, but it checks most of your boxes. This allows you to go in and do certain things to it to make it the way that you want it. Especially as you see like older generations, like if you see like baby boomers retiring, getting out of the house that they're in, the single family home that they're in, and downsizing into like a townhouse or a condo, they're leaving this house, and a lot of times they're not they're not updated, they're not kept up the way that you might want it to as a buyer sitting here in 2026. And so these types of mortgages allow you to be able to do the things you want to the house to make it the way that you want. And essentially when it comes to 203Ks, there's two types. There's a limited and there's the full-blown 203K. And for the most part, they're very similar. There's a lot of things that they have in common. You can do the same, a lot of the same kinds of repairs to each of, to the property with each of these. Essentially, like the limited or the streamlined, some people call it, it has a cap of $75,000. You can't exceed that $75,000 number in repairs, paying contractors. There's a contingency reserve. We'll get to that in a little bit. So if you're not going to exceed 75 and, the repairs fall within the scope of what the limited allows, you can do that. And essentially the limited is, you can't do things like, you can't change out, like you couldn't just knock the building down to its foundation and rebuild it. That's not something that's allowed with the limited.
That's a new build.
Yeah, that's a complete rebuild. You can't do luxury items, so you wouldn't be able to like put a swimming pool in, or even update a swimming pool that was existing, add a sauna, like things like that. You're not able to do. So with the limited, you're limited on what you can do, as the name suggests. And as long as the repairs that you are doing sort of fit into what FHA has determined is, a limited repair, then you are good to go. You can probably utilize that one. The other thing about the limited is you do not have to utilize a HUD contractor if you don't want to, and if you do, you certainly could. But if you're going to do the full-blown 203K, the big bad version of it, you definitely need a HUD consultant in there. And basically what a HUD consultant does is they go into the property, they make sure that anything that needs to be addressed gets addressed in the scope of the work that's going to be done. So, if there's any kind of, stairs where there's 3 or more stairs, you're going to need a handrail or some sort of brace. If there's cracks in the foundation or something like that, like these are things that an FHA 203K contractor is looking for, making sure that their job is to look out for the health, safety, and security of that future occupant. And so they'll come up with a punch list of all the things that need to be done. And on the other hand, you also could have another contractor, consultant type person on the other side working on the things that you want done A lot of these HUD consultants can also double as contractors, but if you wanted to keep them separate, you certainly could. But if you want to redo the kitchen, or you want to build a sunroom, or redo bathrooms, or whatever the case is, like, you would have a contractor that would be able to give you an estimate. So essentially what happens is you identify a property, you're going to need some work on it. That you're going to be hiring a contractor or a HUD consultant or both. And what you do is you take the sales price of the property that you're going to be buying. One of the things that we do here, we actually have an entire department in our corporate office that handles all renovation mortgages, because we do so many of them here. And so, they're true experts. I don't know anyone that knows more about renovation mortgages than the guys at corporate do. It's actually quite impressive.
Shout out guys at corporate.
Shout out to the guys at corporate. But you identify the property, you know what you're paying for it. You get an idea from the contractor how much it's going to cost to do the things that you need to do. And then all of that information is given to an appraiser. And the appraiser takes a look at the property and they say, okay, it's worth this today, but after you do all of these things to it, it's going to be worth X. All of the information for your loan is based on that, after completed value. So, you're buying a house that's worth, $300,000 as it is. You're going to put $50,000 into the property, and when you're done, it's worth $375,000. $375,000 is the number that's used to determine, what your loan amount is, what your down payment is, what your monthly payment is, all of that stuff. So the appraiser plays an important role in this, and so essentially, the rest of it is just like getting a normal loan. You still have to qualify. You still have to provide pay stubs and W-2s and bank statements and all of that stuff. But you go to closing on the property just like you normally would. And then maybe you can occupy the house. Maybe you can't occupy the house, depending on what that scope of the work is.
Yeah.
If you're not going to be able to occupy the house, on the full-blown 203k, you're allowed to escrow some months of the mortgage payments. Because you're not going to be living there, you're going to be living somewhere else, and in theory, you're probably paying to live where that is, and so you can escrow the money for, I think it's up to 12 months of mortgage payments, because you have to have all the work done within 12 months. So essentially what happens, you go to closing on that property, it's now yours, now the work begins, you get a contractor in there, they do some of the work. Then money is released to them after the appraiser goes back to the property to make sure the work was done in a workmanlike manner. And you do that a couple of times. There's some work done, and then the contractor's reimbursed. And then there's more work done, and then the contractor's reimbursed. And when they're done with it, the appraiser goes back out to the property, makes sure all the repairs are made, signs off on the final. Contractor's fully paid, your house is fully done. If there's any money left over in that account that was sort of set aside for this purpose, it's used to pay down your mortgage, so you don't get to pocket it. But it's used to pay down your mortgage, which is really nice. And a lot of times at that point, a lot of people might take advantage of refinancing because you have some more equity in the house. Maybe rates have come down. 203ks are a little bit riskier than other types of mortgages, and so they're kind of priced accordingly, so that the interest rate is slightly higher. But if you're going to do this type of mortgage, you're probably going to be refinancing at some point after that work is done. But then you've got a house just the way that you want it.
Yeah.
You took a house that you saw with your real estate agent that didn't fit everything you wanted it, and you made it into exactly what you wanted, using the materials that you wanted, the layout that you want. So it really is, it's a powerful tool, and I think, like Tanner said, it really is underutilized. It's not something a lot of people talk about. Maybe it seems scary because a lot of people don't know about it.
I think it's a scary thing.
Yeah, I think if you can get over that fear and know that, hey, there are people out here like us and our corporate department that know, what we are doing, and they know how to get these loans originated and processed and closed, it's a really good option.
Yeah, and I think sometimes people, it's not a quick close, I think the beginning process and the loan portion, that's a kind of a quick close. But you have to have your home done being rehabbed, I think in a 6-month period or by the 6th month. Yeah. So it is a longer type of ordeal if that's what you're looking for. But like Tim said, you're getting the house that you want. You're getting the things in the house you want, the kitchen you want, the bathroom you want, and I even think it covers landscaping. Like FHA has a very long list of what they do allow for as repairs.
Right.
I was intrigued that I think landscaping was one of them. So
not on the limited, but on the full blown, yes. Yeah. So I mean, it is a really good product. It's like Tanner said, it's kind of underutilized. But with the right group of people, the right mortgage company, the right contractor, you can make it all work. And so, as we feel like more constrained with inventory, or maybe there's just a lot more activity out there with buyers and you're trying to be a little more competitive or more open to other things that you wouldn't normally be open to, when you're working with your realtor, like this is something you could talk about. You could talk about the FHA 203k or, other renovation mortgages. But I think pulling your realtor into it is an important part too.
Yeah. Well, like Tim had said, it does expand inventory out there for real estate agents. That's been kind of the topic of conversation that I've heard, at least when I'm talking to them. Inventory's low. We've been hearing that for a while now. So this is a good product to be looking at. Foreclosures even, showing some of the buyers who might spark interest in this type of loan product. Go show them some foreclosures. Show them dated homes, even if you think that they might not like them. Maybe they like it and they only want to fix a few things about it. So that's a perfect sale right there. Yeah. It also creates opportunity in low inventory markets, like I was kind of just saying. So it creates less competition. Not a lot of people have the will to go out there and say, you know what, I think I'm going to buy this, even though it's a fixer-upper, and I'm going to do the fixer-upper loan product, and it's going to go great. There are hiccups. It happens. So yeah, I think it takes away competition for people who are going through those bidding wars in and out, because those are still happening. It's not as bad as it was, but it is a thing, and it also just kind of solves repair issues. So if you go in and, like I said, if there's something that's a small repair that can be fixed, maybe it's a bigger repair that needs to be fixed, I think it kind of shows you, your options. I also think it's a good idea that if you have any interest in this loan type whatsoever, bring a friend that's a contractor with you when you see a home. Bring somebody that knows a contractor. Just kind of have them walk through the house with you and point out a few things like, hey, I noticed that over there, or hey, it wouldn't be this much money to kind of flip this bathroom. I always think that's a great idea. And like you had said, we have a 203k department, which is huge. Not a lot of people have a department dedicated to these loan types, and we have a great department, and they know all the answers to the questions, and if they don't know, they're going to figure it out. They've got their process down to a T at this point, so it is a smoother process than I think maybe some other companies.
They're true experts. I don't know anybody. Again, I don't know anyone that knows more about renovation mortgages than our guys at corporate. So So I would say one thing I forgot to mention is that the FHA 203k is specifically for primary residences. So you're going to have to want to live there. But there are a lot of people out there who want to buy a second home or an investment property that needs some work. Teaser alert. The next episode we record is going to be the solution to those. You are an investor. You have some money, but you don't have enough money to do all of the work that you need done to a house. You just have enough to be able to finance it. So let's, how do we help those people finance investment properties or second homes that also need a little bit of work to them. So stay tuned for the next episode and we'll bring that one to you.
Yeah. I think another thing also to mention is while this is a primary residence product, you can't pair it with programs. So I know that's a question I get often is, okay, well, if I'm going through the rehab loan type, am I able to use a down payment assistance program on the back end? The answer is no. It's a hard no, sorry. Yeah. No, but great product. Product to use.
Fantastic product. Again, I think getting the word out is probably part of getting more people to take advantage of a product like that. So I think we tried to simplify something that's it's a slightly complicated product. Again, I think a lot of people are afraid of it. There's a lot more to it than what we mentioned, but I think we kind of hit like the high level things. If you have questions, you want to dive deeper into, hey, exactly what sorts of things can I finance or can't I finance, or, what if, I want to do this, and how much is a contingency reserve, or what even is a contingency reserve? Like we have the answers to those questions, so we're happy to help. So just give us a shout, and we'd be happy to talk you through it.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Well, that's it for today's episode. Thanks for joining us. And next week, we'll talk about the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac versions of this product.
Stay tuned.
All right. We'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.